Hello, everyone. In case you haven't met me before in a previous caring conversation, my name is Felisa Strickland. Today's topic is the lifelong sibling journey, navigating care, advocacy, and family. Joining us for today's conversation is Acrystal Pugh, Flor Parra and Mariana Perera. I'll start by giving you a little bio on each of them. Acrystal is a dedicated leader, advocate, and lifelong learner who currently serves as a board member for the ARC of California. She holds an associate degree in finance, a bachelor degree in management, and a master degree in human resource management. Acrystal's passion for community engagement is reflected in her extensive volunteer and leadership history. She serves on the Advisory Council for the California Sibling Leadership Network and has contributed her time as a peer mentor, reading and math tutor, and former member of the ARC of the United States National Sibling Council. Her work consistently centers on empowerment, inclusion, and creating meaningful pathways for individuals and families within the disability community. She is the proud daughter of Lucille and Curtis and the devoted big sister and caregiver to her one and only baby sister and best friend, Shonda, who has developmental disabilities. Shonda has been her greatest teacher, showing her the true meaning of unconditional love and fueling her lifelong commitment to advocacy. Flor Parra, mother to three daughters, her youngest one with Down syndrome and autism spectrum disorder. She also is a sibling to a brother with epilepsy. She loves spending time with her family, and one of their best places to visit is Disneyland. Flor is also the manager for the Alpha Resource Center in Santa Barbara County. She loves supporting families and being an advocate in her community. Mariana Perera is currently a graduate student of global politics in London. She has a younger sibling named Sergio who has autism, epilepsy, and developmental disability diagnosis. They are both originally from Mexico City, but grew up in California. She has previously worked in Washington, D.C. on Capitol Hill and received a Fulbright grant to conduct research on disability rights policy in Brazil. Most recently, she has begun working on her mom's podcast, Neuroparentis Podcast. I don't know if I pronounced that right, but I apologize if I didn't, which aims to provide a space for the Spanish-speaking disability community. So without further ado, please welcome Acrystal, Flor, and Mariana. Hello there. How are you all?
Hello.
So good to have you with us.
Thank you for having
Thank
us.
you. Thank you.
Yes, I'm so excited about this conversation and having you all here on this panel to talk about this important topic of sibling caregiving. So, I'm also excited for our audience to hear the different perspectives because in getting to know each of you, I've learned that each of you have a different, unique story around sibling caregiving. So, I'm super excited to get started, and I'm going to go ahead and just let each of you tell a little bit about your story. And we'll start with you, Crystal. So some of our viewers may remember you from the last time we did a caring conversation together, and things have changed a little bit for you. So if you wouldn't mind sharing a little bit about your caregiving role and how it's changed since we talked to you last and how things are going for you and Shawnee.
Yeah, thanks for having me again, Felisa. Hi, everybody. Yeah, things have certainly changed since I last talked to you. My mother passed away last year, July of 2025.
Oh, I'm so
And
sorry.
thank you. Thank you. And my life has totally changed. I am now the primary caregiver for my sister Shawnee, and it was something that was really already arranged. We used to live in Michigan. We're of course now in California, but when I lived in Michigan, my mother and I had to go to court for my sister to pretty much obtain guardianship for her when she became of a certain age. And my mother had the important conversation with me. She asked me, she said, would you be willing to be a successor in case something happens to me or if I'm no longer able to care for her? And without hesitation, I said yes. And I've remained committed to that. And in doing so now, I'm doing it now. So it has been challenging. I have good days, I have bad days. But you know, we're doing good. Not doing bad at all. We're doing pretty good. My mom prepared both of us during her transition. She had a talk with her and with me, and it helped a lot. So we're doing our best.
Well, thank you for sharing that. Yeah, I know this has probably been one of the most um, challenging, yet I'm sure in some ways rewarding year for you. Just to be in this different space with her, right? And how
Yes.
is Shawnee doing with that? Is she feeling okay with it? Does she have a good understanding of what's happened with your mom, and then also you taking on some of those other things that your mom used to do for her?
Yeah, she's unfortunately she's not really comprehending what happened for her. She feels like she's still in the hospital.
Oh
So
yeah.
every now and then she'll say she's with the doctor, and I'll just kind of go along with it. I don't want to rattle that at all. So I just kind of go along with it. She's adjusting. Like I said, mom talked to her. She had a talk with me, believe it or not, a few months before she passed. She told us that she really felt like she was about to die and that she wanted to prepare us. And she told me some things to do. She encouraged Shani. She told her to you know, let me help her. She said, mommy is just not doing well, and I need you to let Crystal help you. And so far, so good. She's been very cooperative. Um, I can say that, I've watched my mom a million times caring for my sister, watching her doing different things for her. And now that I'm in that role, I have learned to appreciate my mom even more and
Mm,
love her even more. It's the little things that's not so little
yeah.
that I've discovered in being her caregiver. And I'll use an example. My mom used to, well, let me go back. My sister had a stroke when she was 3 months, and that really was what led to her disability.
Mhm.
When she had the stroke, her right leg and foot were paralyzed. And so over time, it has gotten better, but it's still weak. And so when my mom would care for her, she would literally get on the floor and massage my sister's feet to help with her circulation.
Mm.
And I find myself doing that now. And so, again, it's the little things, it's not so little that my mother did for her that I will always honor and cherish my mom forever, just for those type of things that I just didn't realize that she did for her. It's just, you just don't know until you put yourself into their shoes, what they go through. And so I encourage everyone that's here today, especially our siblings, to do that. Put yourself in your mom and dad's shoes, and even their shoes too. How would you want to be treated if you were in that situation?
Yeah, you bring up such an important point. Thank you, Crystal, for sharing your story, but also on touching on the importance of really knowing the person that you're caring for. And you, all those years with your mom,
Yeah.
were subconsciously paying attention to the things that would bring your sister comfort and be
Yes.
able to step into that role sort of seamlessly, if you may, So thank you
Yes.
so much for sharing a little bit about your story. And
You're welcome.
again, I'm sorry for your mom's passing, but I think
Thank you.
that the preparation that the two of you had
Yes.
beforehand and like that
Yes.
we talked about in our last webinar together is so
Yes.
important, right?
It
And that's why the
is.
future planning piece of it is so important because you can
Yes, it
sort
is.
of put some things in motion. Should something happen, you're better prepared. And I
Yes.
do have one last question for you, and that is, how are you adjusting with, I'm sure things have had to change with your day to day and your
Yes.
schedule and your
Yes.
workflow and like all of those things. Are
Yeah.
you handling that? Do you feel like you have a good handle on that? Do you think the preparation helped you transition?
I think so. I'm still kind of learning to balance everything. The thing that I want to emphasize for myself and others is the self-care. That is so, so important. And that's something that I'm gradually learning. You're so, busy caring for someone else that sometimes you neglect yourself. And so I have had to do that a lot. And in my situation, I'm still grieving, so it's,
Yeah.
the grief and the self-care and caring for her is balancing it all. And so the thing that I tend to do, unfortunately, is put myself last, and I have to learn to do better self-care. So I've gotten better. I'm not 100%, but I have gotten better.
Well, you're
So
preaching to the choir because I hear everything you're saying. Yeah, I
yeah,
struggle with it too. And we even teach
yes,
self-care classes, don't
yes,
we? Yeah.
yes, we do. Yes,
So,
we do.
yeah. Yeah. Well,
Yeah,
thank you again, Crystal, for
you're
sharing your
welcome.
story.
Thank
Flor,
you.
let's move to you. Let's hear a little bit about your sibling caregiving experience and how your situation is very unique in that, you started as a young sibling caring for your brother, and now look at you. I'm going to let you share all about it, but tell us a little bit about your story.
Absolutely, Felisa. Thank you for having me. My name is Flor Parra Morales. I have a beautiful family. My youngest one has Down syndrome and autism, but I'm also a sibling of a brother with epilepsy. My brother started getting seizures around 6 years old, around seven. He wasn't born with a disability. So we were very young when I started, learning a little bit about, my brother's situation, my mom, being a single mom, raising three kids on her own, navigating services, transitions. And so that, I think my mom and my brother had been teaching me quite a few stuff that now as a mother, cherish. And I am so grateful, to be able to like care for my brother and learn from my mom being an advocate, and navigating a lot of services alone. Now I'm a new parent, of, like I said before, of a child with Down syndrome and autism. And you know um like what a Krista was saying, you kind of, I guess, appreciate your mom more, right? Once you start doing and being, the caregiver, then you start appreciating those little things that are not so little. But yeah, so another thing, I cared for my brother for about 5 to 6 years. Around that time, my mom had to move to New York for work purposes. My brother, my sister, and my mom, we all had a conversation about, you know, who's gonna care for my brother. And so my brother said, "Hey, like I actually want to just live with Flor." So so I was very grateful that my husband, agreed on that. We took on a full responsibility. Like I didn't know anything about, I was going into IEP meetings. I was just, I didn't know nothing about IEPs. I didn't know nothing about regional center services, medical appointments, right? So I had to learn all of that. And I'm so grateful for all of those experiences that we had. So yeah, that's a little bit about me. But yeah, just kind of helping now families navigating services, helping them getting access to resources. Um, and I honestly think that being a caregiver, it's a lot, but it's very rewarding. I felt like I was supporting my mom, but I was supporting my little brother. He's always gonna be my little brother, right?
Yeah.
He's like
Mhm.
28, 29, but he's still my little brother.
Sorry.
So it's
Yeah.
such an amazing experience. But it's also it's difficult. There's a lot of challenges that comes with being the caregiver and learning about, I didn't know nothing about epilepsy. I didn't know nothing about, how to support an individual that's having a seizure. And so I've learned a lot. And I am so grateful that I get to support families now. And I'm very passionate about what I do.
So you've had literally a full circle experience, starting with disability being part of your childhood with your brother, then taking on the responsibility of being his caregiver. And then that led you to work with people with disabilities at Alpha Resource Center now. And now, you started as a direct support professional, and then now you're the manager of the Family Resource Center, like you said, helping families navigate how to get services. So, when I hear your story, I'm very amazed at, how just without you even knowing it, how it's just taken you to this place where now you're serving other families. You also brought up another really great point Flor, and that is learning about the person that you're caring for and how, that must have been challenging for you as a young sibling to see your brother having these challenges, but then, stepping up for your mom and learning more about his disability so that you could step in and help her and, the importance of that. And then also how that's helped you learn about accessing services and supports and how, and then you end up needing to do that for yourself and your own child, right? So, thank you so much for sharing a little bit more about that because it's each experience is unique. Did you ever along the way feel sometimes I think one of the challenges for parents is that they worry about putting the responsibility on their other sibling or their other children. Did you ever feel, when your mom had that conversation with you and your siblings, did you ever feel that was something you struggled with to take on that responsibility, or, what were your thoughts around that?
Yeah, thank you, Felice. I think this is a great question. Um, I honestly just didn't even think twice. I said if my brother wants to stay with us and I just wanted him to stay at a place that's safe and someone who knows how to care for him. Um, and yeah, along those years, I realized that it was quite a challenge for me. But luckily, and I was very blessed because I had already started working for the Alpha Resource Center. So I kind of receive a lot of support from my colleagues. But yes, Felisa, it was kind of one of those like, if my brother wants to stay with me, there's no hesitation. You will stay with me. We'll make arrangements. We'll make accommodations in the house. My husband, I wouldn't be able to do it without my husband's support. So that's a big, I always say like, there's support that I was also receiving. So yeah, there was no hesitation at all. I just wanted my brother to be in a safe place and stay with me. And yeah,
Yeah, that's so important that the accommodations and the supports and having the additional support because even, whether you're the parent, whether you're the sibling, or whether you're a direct support professional, we all need breaks. We all need the support systems. So did you feel like that, that was something that you and your mom talked about, like what kind of supports you might need and the preparation for that? Was that something you felt supported in?
absolutely. Yeah,
Yeah.
no, I mean, absolutely. We started kind of like talk. I didn't know nothing about neurologists. I didn't know nothing about special doctors, and I learned that from my mom. And so, we sat down and she's like, "These are the appointments that your brother will be having. These are the responsibilities of, when he takes medications." And so, I always feel like my mom has been the biggest advocate that you can also meet. She's been amazing, and I mean, I would have phone calls with her like maybe every day, right? Like checking up
Yeah.
on me, like, are you okay? Like, how are you doing? And so then I would call my sister, and like then she will take my brother for a little bit, and then but yeah, there was a lot of preparation for Lisa that we had to go through. I mean, we had to do like legal documents. I mean, everything from like the school staff. And at that time, my brother was going through like this like adult transition. So
Mhm.
not only navigating services for my brother, but also navigating adulthood, right? So
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, so preparation, support, yeah, really important. And then also getting getting all of the legal components taken care of as well. Thank
yeah.
you, Flor. Thank you so much for sharing a little bit about your story. I'm going to come back to each of you at the end, and I have a couple of more questions specifically, but I want everyone to hear about your individual perspectives first. So, Mariana, tell us a little bit about your story. Is interesting to me because it shows how Mariana's joining us today from London. She's a student over there. And so I really love your story because it shows your caregiving you're still involved with your brother's care, even though you're not living with him locally. And so share a little bit about that, if you will, about your brother and the connection that you've had throughout your life and how you continue to be a part of his future as a caregiver.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you so much for having me. So my brother's currently 23 years old, really in that transition period into adulthood. So things have certainly been changing, even, as I've left my house and stuff. But he has epilepsy, autism, and intellectual disabilities. And, I was 6 years old when he had his first seizure at 10 months. So, very quickly, I think I knew from an early age that our relationship and what I would expect of a sibling relationship would not look maybe like everybody else around me. But I think something that was really important and we've kind of talked on is family, right? And I think from an early age, my parents talked to me about it, right? We talked about, what was expected of me, but also how could I still feel supported by them, feel like my priorities were there, but also thinking about the future. I think trying to find that balance of being in the moment and enjoying what was happening and taking all the challenges as they came day to day, but also thinking about the future and how do we prepare for the future? What would that look like? Which are scary conversations. They're still scary. I'm 29 and they're very scary still to have because you just never know when that's going to change for you. So I think that's been a really important thing to me has been having that be a very open thing that we can talk about. And I think that's also helped my relationship with my brother because there's not this kind of, I guess, not awkwardness or like resentment or anything, right? This has just been like a normal thing that we handle as a family. And as you mentioned, I'm currently in London, and my parents and my brother are back in California. So I have actually not lived physically at home for the last 10 years, sometimes a bit closer, sometimes an ocean away. And we've just had to adapt and really find how these dynamics can help, right? So, some of the things I try and do are, I call every day. And I will say my brother does not want to talk to me on the phone when I call, which is a bit hurtful, but I think I make the effort to try and call every day to remind him that even if I'm not there, he's still on my mind. I'm still thinking about him. I miss him. I want to hear what his day is like. He's nonverbal, but can still sort of have some of those conversations. That sibling relationship that we have. I try to visit as often as I can, and I think now again, as we're going through the transition to adulthood, seeing how I can be supportive to my parents who they may need a break, they may want to have some time to themselves, and trying to find jobs or situations that allow me to be flexible to say, hey, I have a responsibility back home, um, and really keeping that still fresh in my mind.
That's great. Thank you so much for sharing a little bit about the connection you have with your brother. So keeping in touch, that's great. I love that you make the effort, even though you're an ocean away, to stay connected. Tell me a little bit about you are doing something special with your mom too. I mentioned in your bio about the podcast. So that's another way that you're supporting your family and the sibling relationship. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, I mean, I think again mentioning the importance of conversation and I think community has been something that has been really impactful in being able to have a relationship with my brother. So, early on, my mom took me to the Epilepsy Foundation of San Diego to learn and to have expressive arts therapy to really be able to process my feelings. My parents went to support groups down there, which I think just really changed the perspective and how we address again, living with someone with disabilities and made it such a being able to turn it into a very positive experience and seeing, the bright sides of him, of who he is. He's the happiest person I know and just enjoys puzzles, enjoys swimming. And so I think with that same aspect of community and wanting, I think my mom received a lot of help and advice from people through along the journey, which it's a hard journey. I think Flor mentioned, Acrystal mentioned, setting up services, figuring out stuff with the doctors, legal stuff. Parents rely a lot on community, and so my mom set out, her and her colleagues set out to create a podcast helps families and people who have someone with special needs that speak Spanish. There's such a great Spanish speaking community, and there's not as many resources for that in Spanish as there is in English. And so that's always been a great thing because I think other parents can connect. I've been on the podcast to try and share, the importance of the sibling side and supporting siblings so that that relationship can be really what I see, Crystal and Flor doing, right? Being able to step up and knowing that that's part of what they want to do, not just what they have to do.
Right.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but that's what I'm interpreting, right? I think we know that to an extent it's a responsibility, but it's something that we see as what we would want to do regardless of the responsibility because of the relationship we've built with our siblings. So Neuropuentes, which I believe you will send a link to at the end of this, really seeks to give the Spanish speaking community resources, talking with experts all the way from doctors to psychologists to therapists and even just the parent experiences to say, we are with you, we've gone through this, and we're here to support you, which I think is just so important.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing about that. And you're a perfect segue, what you just said about wanting to be there and take some of the weight from your parents. And anyway, it's going to segue right into the questions that I want to give each of you. And so we'll start back with you, Acrystal, but I really appreciate each of you sharing your individual stories. And I know that we have many people that are watching and listening today. And so hopefully we'll have some questions for each of you about your specific situations. But I want to just ask you about, are there any words of wisdom that you have for each of you in your situation? Maybe some tips for parents that are trying to navigate whether they should include you in the future plans of their siblings. That can be a very hard thing for families to figure out. It's easy, I guess, if you're volunteering, but if you're not, or if or maybe it's not even that. Maybe it's parents that just know how hard it is, and so they hesitate to put the responsibility on their other kids. Do you have any thoughts on that? And then also, what would you say to siblings and parents to help them navigate the unique journey?
I would say definitely have that conversation. You would be surprised at what your other children may say. You may think that they wouldn't want that responsibility, but you just don't know until you have that conversation. Again, for me, it was no hesitation. I'm like Flor. I was like, it was a no-brainer for me. She's going to be with me. And right now, even with my mother transitioning, I felt the same way then. It's like, and I told my mother that too, because she was the type of parent that I don't want her burdening you, or I don't want it to be a burden. I want you to have your own life and things like that. And I'm like, well, it wouldn't be a life if we didn't have her in it. So it was important to me. And so I would encourage parents, again, this is not for everybody. I realize that all siblings are different, but for me, it was a no-brainer. But I would encourage parents to have that conversation with their other children. Again, you never know the response you'll get when talking to them.
Well, and we know from teaching future planning classes that, it doesn't necessarily have to be the full role, right? So
That's
maybe
true.
the sibling is just involved in a certain aspect of the
That is
ongoing
true.
care. So it's
Yes,
worth the conversation, though, to see where they might be able to fit into the picture, because as
that is
siblings, they
true.
definitely have a relationship of some sort, right? And so keeping that
Yes,
connection would be so important.
yes.
Any words for siblings? Any thoughts for siblings that you want to
I
share?
would,
For siblings, I would
I
say,
might,
oh, I'm sorry.
no, no, go ahead.
Okay. Um, for siblings, I would just say consider it. Um, Again, it's not for everybody. I know personally people that did not, want that responsibility. So I understand that. Um, but I would say at least consider it. And like you just said, Felisa, it may not be that they be in your home and that you're a full-time caregiver, but at least be involved with their care. Make sure that if they're not living with you, that wherever they are, that you're visiting them, that you're making sure that they're taken care of and that
Mhm.
all of their needs are met. So I would say in any capacity, just make sure you're involved.
Excellent. Thank you, Acrystal. Mariana, we'll go ahead and go to you.
Yeah, I think two things kind of popped up from what Crystal said. The first thing, I think, give the sibling and even the sibling yourself, right? The chance to like seek that kind of the same idea of the self-care, right? I think having an outlet where I could go and express all of my emotions, whatever those emotions were, I
Mm.
think is so important. I think a lot of times what you see, especially at a younger age, because when I did this therapy, I was around 9 years old, right? There's a lot that you don't know, a lot that you don't understand. And I think having a professional help you process those emotions really changes kind of how you envision it, right? I think if you're scared and you have nowhere to talk to, it's going to seem scary even down the line rather than being able to actually address your concerns, right? Same thing, you might be like, I don't know if I can take this responsibility. And someone might say, hey, there's actually a lot of programs and services that mean that you're not alone, especially, in the state of California. My family chose California because of the services that are legally given to people with disabilities and the support that exists for families. So I think take care of yourself so that you can also be in the best position to kind of really take that decision. Um, and the second thing would be for parents to really seek out those services because I think even for them as caregivers, there's so much out there and there's so many people like you guys who are trying to let people know about the services, but using those to really set things up. Because, my mom, when we talk about the future, she says, all this work that I'm putting in, which she puts a lot of work in, she says, it's not just for him, it's also for you to feel like in the future, you guys can be at a better place together. And like a Crystal said, even though I'm in London and have been living all throughout, I know that at the end of the day, I envision my future with my brother. And that's thanks to all of these things that have, come about.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Mariana and Flor. Any last words from you on, tips for parents that are wondering about, whether they should or shouldn't ask their kids, their other children, and then also what would you say about, some tips for siblings that are wondering, what their involvement should be. And there's so many things that we can touch on in this conversation. There's feelings sometimes of guilt of not wanting to do it, or it's too much for me, or, there's all those things and all of it's valid. So I'm sure that, at any moment you could feel some of those things. I'm a mom, a full-time mom, and I feel those things all the time, but I don't hold on to them. I know that they're part of the process. So, but Flor, what would you say to some of those things?
Yeah, absolutely, Felisa. I mean, I would encourage, parents to start talking and having those conversations with, their kids and kind of sharing about whether they want to take those full responsibilities or partially, but kind of I feel like what helped me personally is my mom always sharing things about my brother with me so that I was always involved with, even though I didn't know nothing about services or school support right, but my mom would always have these conversations with me. So I think that for parents, like sharing, medical appointments, services with, the
Very
sibling,
important.
it's very, it's very useful. I know having hard conversations, about future planning and things like that can be a little scary, but I think it's necessary, right? As for siblings, I would also highly suggest that they reach out to their family, local family resource center, join some sibling support groups, right? Have that connection with other siblings and kind of share like their journeys. That's what I'm doing with my daughters right now. They're actually part of a sibling support group. And so, you know, they're teenagers, but at least they have a group of friends now, that they know that they are not alone on this journey, and it is okay to feel like My goodness, my little sister can be a lot, and it's okay to feel those, to feel have those feelings. Their feelings are valid. I wish I would have had a sibling group back then. So yeah.
Thank you,
Yeah.
Flor. Yeah, really great points. I love that. And that
Can I add
reminds
to?
me that Acrystal has some information she wants to share about that. So I'm going to turn it over to you, Acrystal.
Yeah, yeah, and I wanted to kind of piggyback on Floor. Yeah, it's so important to have those conversations, and I would say start early. Like she was saying, her mom always shared things with her. My mother did the same thing. She always shared things with me. But one of the other things that I want to encourage parents to do too, sometimes the other sibling growing up, they feel neglected because a lot of the attention is on the sibling with the disabilities. And you're young, you don't understand why, right? Because you're young. But as you get older, you understand. But as a young person, I would encourage parents to have a relationship with not just the child with the disability, but also your other children, and just kind of talk with them, ask them how they feel. How do you feel about this? How do you feel about that? To me, that's important. And like Flor said, the sibling support group, which I'm about to get to in just a second, but they are so important. And like her, I wish I would have had that at a younger age during my journey as a young person. I didn't come across this till I became an adult. So it's a great group. The support group is there. Like Flor said, you meet so many people and have so many friends. And being a young person, I think that's great to connect with other siblings, just to again connect with people who can relate to what you're going through.
Well, it speaks
And
to what Mariana was talking about having an outlet, a place to
yes,
share how you're feeling,
yes,
other than within your family, because sometimes that can feel like you're a little afraid to
yes.
say how you actually feel, right?
That
So,
is true.
yeah,
That
that's
is true.
great. Yeah.
So, I'm as Felisa said at the top of the meeting, I am a part of the California Sibling Leadership Network. I'm a part of the advisory council, and I'm so excited to announce that we are scheduling our first meeting for the Sacramento area. It's going to be virtual, but we're planning it, and eventually we'll have some in person. But right now, the first one will be virtual. We're planning to have that on Saturday, October 17th. I believe it's at 11 a.m. And so um, we're going to provide the link for the meetup. We meet through Meetup. And so we do have other events and other meetups in other areas throughout California. But again, this is our first one for Sacramento. And so we'll provide those links later so that you can register for those. I also have a couple of things, just a couple of more things I want to share. One of our fierce leaders for the California SIBS, Julie Payne Newward, she will be speaking at the North State Regional Advisory Committee Conference
Oh,
on
wonderful.
tomorrow.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
great.
Yeah, she'll be there tomorrow, and I think it starts at 1 p.m. I can also share the link for that as well. She also has an award-winning film and documentary called The Natalie Project, and it's really dedicated to talk about preventing sexual assault among individuals with developmental disabilities. So it's a great film. And lastly, there's a lot, believe it or not, there's a lot of authors, SIB authors out there that has books out there. One of which I supported a few months ago. His name is Brian Trapp, and the name of his book is Range of Motion. And I can kind of give you a little, but that's his book. He has a great book. He's actually a twin to someone. His brother he had, I think, cerebral palsy. So it's a great book, and there are other books out there too. So, again, if we can support each other, SIBS helping SIBS and supporting each other, I would highly recommend that you get his book and others.
And I just want to say thank you again, Crystal, Mariana, and Flor, for being here with us today and spending some time and sharing your stories. So we're going to move into Q&A now. They've been kind enough to stay and answer questions as well. So if you have questions, let's see, it looks like we do have some questions. So I'm going to pull those up. We've got 4 questions at the moment, and we'll go ahead and get started answering. So let's go with the one at the top. It's from an anonymous attendee. Did any of you hire a third organization to help manage care, like overseeing finances, medical? And if you manage all aspects, are you doing it informally or getting compensated through a special needs trust or other mechanism? And then third, an observation, all speakers are women, which shows that the responsibility seems to fall disproportionately on women. As a mom with young children, I am worried about balancing needs of a sibling, aging parents, and my children. How are you navigating this, if relevant, or wish you had? Anyone want to take that one or a portion of it?
Hmm. I do have a third party that has assist through ARC. They are helping me with other resources that I may not be familiar with. They have helped a lot. And of course, I'm actually in the middle of doing conservatorship for my sister for California. So I'm consulting an attorney right now. I have also had to balance caring for parents and for my sibling. Both of my parents are up in age, or my mom was up in age before her passing, and my dad is right now. So um, I do have to kind of do some things for him as well as for my sister. It's a balancing act, you do the best you can to
And bring
help.
in some outside supports, I would assume too. Like you
Yes,
probably have to rely a lot on what
yes,
kind of care he's gets with his insurance and different things
yes,
like that and
exactly.
coordinating all of that. But it's a lot. Yeah.
It
So
is. It
Probably
is.
being graceful with yourself and your abilities to do, knowing that you're doing what you can, right?
Yeah, exactly. And again, the self-care, you have to be mindful of taking care of yourself as while you're taking care of others.
yeah, and
It's
reminding
so
yourself,
important. Yeah,
yeah,
and reminding
that
yourself. Yeah, you do.
that you're doing the best you can too, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly. Yeah,
Great
exactly.
questions, though. Thank you for bringing up those questions. Let's see. So Chris asks, "Where are you all located?" I'm in California, but dealing with and caring for someone in New Jersey. I need to find long-term care for this older person with Down syndrome, not a group home. So we're all in California, and I think the Crystal, you're up in Sacramento. Flor, you're here in Santa Barbara with me. And Mariana, where does your family live? In Northern California?
They're near Sacramento as well.
Okay. Yeah. But yeah, the housing thing, I would encourage you to, at the end, I'm going to make an announcement about our caregiving National Disability Caregiver Conference, and we're actually going to have a housing presentation as well. We also have a housing presentation in our Caring Conversations. We had one just a couple of months ago that might be a helpful resource for you, Chris. Um, Claudia says, "How do we receive help when one does not have family, and that may help in care of a disabled sibling? There is in-home supportive services. However, our family is not trustworthy and are wary to receive this help." Yeah, that's a hard one. Do any of you have any suggestions about how to find care as a sibling?
Yeah, I mean, Felisa, I would suggest even, visiting some of those independent living places, asking for a tour and what is best for the individual.
I would agree.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, I think that's it. And connecting with, we talk about accessing services, but we often forget that most all areas have, if you don't know how to connect with services and supports, find your local family resource center because your local family resource center, while they may not be the direct access to the service that you're looking for, they will know how to connect you. And so that's all there's a huge network of family resource centers in California. So that's one thing that you can do to help support you through the journey.
I would say too, Felisa, the ARC is really, I think, in all the states. So that's a great resource. I think I would start there.
Yeah, I
Your local ARC office. Yeah.
Absolutely, absolutely. And if you don't know which family resource center to connect to, the ARC of California or the ARC of whatever state, or even your local chapter will be able to help you with that. And often the local chapter of the ARC is in somewhat have that does have a family resource center. Like the Alpha Resource Center is the local chapter for the ARC of California, and we have a family resource center. So that's a wonderful place to start. Thank you, Crystal.
I would, if I may add, I think it's scary to think of other people taking care of your sibling or your loved one,
Mhm.
but I think there's steps that you can take, right? I think a lot of the resources that everyone has mentioned are worthy sources, right? I think so many people rely on them, and I'm not going to say it's going to be a perfect scenario every single time, but I do think some of the things my parents have had to talk about, right? Like, I think they were terrified the first time they left my brother in the care of someone from in-home supportive services. And I think you just have to really challenge yourself and know that you can't control everything. Obviously, I think there's so many things you can do, right? Ask all the questions you have. Don't, if something feels off, don't go with it, right? There's so many options, but I do think there needs to be the ability of sort of saying that you can only control so much, because if you don't rely on other people, then you're really gonna, you know, run yourself out of battery. And that's the most important part that you can do, is make sure that you're good to be able to continue full-time care or whatever level of
So
care.
important. So important.
I
Excellent
agree.
point. Thank you for bringing that up. Because you really do. And even whether you're a sibling or whether you're a parent, you've got to sometimes take the chance and take the risk. And that's how you
And
learn.
it'll always be scary.
Yeah, that's how you learn what works and what doesn't work and what you need and what you don't need. And so, but it's yeah, I get it. It's a very challenging and very scary thing to do, but so worth it because you will find exactly what you need if you keep trying. Um, we have a comment from Houston, Texas. Congratulations to the ARC of California, and thanks to each of you for participating in this podcast. So that's just a thank you to all of you. And then we have a question from um, Mariam from California, systems change advocate. I really appreciate all of the sibling caregivers here. You are very inspiring. My question is, as a sibling caregiver, what changes or improvements in government policies do you think would make life better for people with disabilities and their caregivers? Ooh, let me get my
I
list.
want to go. Yeah, really. I got several. Um, I'm gonna say one of the main ones, which I'm hoping either California Sibs or the ARC, either one, would emphasize is the video cameras in group homes and classrooms with people with disabilities. I just think it's essential. I think it's important to have that as people care for them. Like Mariana said, I mean, you're already nervous sending them to other people, to care for them when you're not there. So I just think it's essential having those cameras in those places. I think is important.
Yeah, that would be a good one. Anything else?
Yeah.
Mariana,
Two
Flor, do you have
things.
any thoughts on that?
I think two things. I think just funding, right? I think so many things are underfunded. So many caregivers are underpaid, right? So if we're talking about and to ensure that your sibling or your loved one have high quality care, you want to be paying those people a livable wage, a wage that encourages them to really. I think it's really easy to lose the passion for it when you're struggling to make ends meet. And obviously, the economy is awful. Everybody's struggling, but I think in those specific roles, and even teachers, right? Special needs teachers, anyone who's involved with people with special needs, they do it because they're passionate and because they have a love for it. And so when
Mhm.
you make it even harder for them, you end up losing a lot of people who might not be able to. So I think funding is imperative. And because a lot of these people, right? Like if you have caregivers, then there might be more siblings that stay at home and less need for home. There's so many things that I think are connected. And then I think just making things more of at a federal level. My family moved to California specifically for the rights. And, my mom talks to people all throughout the country who just based on the state that they live in do not have the same, in-home support services,
Mhm.
the right to certain things. And I think that is just so, someone is getting disproportionate help just based on where they were born, based on where they live, and that really shouldn't be the case. I think there needs to be more standardization so that, other states are at the level that California is, because we're pretty privileged to have the services that California has.
Yeah, that's a very good point. But yeah, and funding is always going to be something that we need. But yeah, and what you're talking about applies to caregivers, and but it also applies to the people that are in the roles of providers, right? Like those providers are their caseloads and that kind of stuff is like people are carrying caseloads that are ridiculously high and they don't have the capacity to touch all the people that they're supposed to be serving. So that's another part of funding that I think could be really beneficial if we could get that under control too. Thank you. That's a great point. Anything else? Anybody have anything else to add? Okay, let's go. We have a couple more questions and then we'll wrap up. Let's see. So, how about challenging behaviors? Does anyone have any thoughts that they want to share on the challenge of caring for siblings with, that might have severe autism or mental health challenges, that can make it very, the physical aggression towards caregivers, making it difficult to provide care, and safety concerns, that kind of thing. I don't know if any of you have that experience, but any thoughts around it that you want to share? Just jump in.
I can take it on. I can take that.
Okay.
My brother has some severe behavior challenges, and I think, again, I feel like I sound like I'm saying the same things, but reaching out to resources, I think there's lots of trainings. I know my family's going through some trainings to maybe change the approach that you have, being patient, and I think really trying to listen, right? I think my brother is nonverbal, so I think a lot of the behaviors come from the frustration that he can't express himself. So trying to find different ways that he can express himself, right? He has an iPad. My mom has recently started doing a spelling therapy to see if he can spell out what he's feeling, but really taking a step back and trying to listen. And I think it takes a lot of patience. I don't have it all the time, um, but really being able to kind of change the perspective and say my sibling is not acting out because they're just really frustrated, and they have something to say, and that's just as valid as my own frustration.
Excellent point. And I can speak to that too, just as a parent, not as a sibling necessarily, but we encounter some challenging times as well because my daughter, communicates with an iPad, but when she gets dysregulated, she's not able to do that. And so sometimes identifying whatever it is that's upsetting her is challenging. But one of the things I have learned is that I need to keep myself regulated.
Mhm.
The more I escalate to her level, the harder it is to get the whole situation resolved. And so that patience that you're talking about, but also remembering that it's not necessarily, it's not always, I mean, it's not always understandable. Like sometimes it can be the environment. It could be just be a noise that they hear that we don't hear, or the lights are too bright, or it's they don't want to be where you're at, or there's so many different components to it. But behavior is communication. I know that sometimes that's hard to to take that as a reason, but usually if you can stay calm and just allow them to space to move through what they're feeling, and then the two of you are calm, then you can get to a place where you can resolve whatever it is. But yeah, that's a very hard thing indeed.
Yeah, Felisa, can I add something onto
Sure.
that? Yeah, like what you said, behavior is a form of communication. In my case, if something would have happened at school that made my brother really upset. He was holding on that feeling until he would come home, right? And so I would have to kind of give him some space, but then also he's able to speak and but a lot of the times it was like it could be something that like lunchtime. Something happened during lunchtime, and then he hold on into that feeling of like frustration. And he would come home and kind of just like you know,
Let it out.
kind of just, yeah, like express the way he was feeling, and just kind of given his space was something that, like what you said, Felisa, I think I agree on that. Just being calm and, okay, I'll talk to you when you're ready. You can go to your room, or if you're hungry, what? Because sometimes they might be hungry.
Yeah,
I
Yeah,
can tell you,
yeah,
my
yeah,
brother would come
yeah.
home and probably he didn't like the lunch at school, and so he got so overwhelmed, and so because of
Yeah.
that, he gets frustrated and things like that. So I think just finding a way of to like communicate with your, with your child or individual.
yeah, so important. Yeah, and the hunger thing, that's real.
Yeah.
My daughter is not, she doesn't have many words, but she figured out one night, she wasn't sleeping, and it was 3 o'clock in the morning, and she had just been squealing and screaming, and I couldn't figure out why. And then finally she just came in and she said, hungry. No, she said food. She said food. And I said, oh my
Amazing.
gosh, she's hungry. So I got her some food. I made her some turkey and she ate that and she was asleep in like 20 minutes. And I said, oh my gosh, if I had known that that was all it was, So
Yeah.
it can be a real challenge, but we've got two more questions. Let's take them real quick if you guys don't mind, and then we will go ahead and share a couple more announcements, and then we'll wrap it up. So we have Gloria. I'm 76 years old. My sister is 70. I'm concerned about passing away before her. Any suggestions? And then she wants to know if there's a sibling support group in Los Altos, South Bay area. I don't know the answer to that, but Crystal, do you?
I I don't know,
Oh,
honestly. I don't
okay.
know, but I can find out.
But
I,
maybe one of the links that you're going to share in the
yeah,
thank you that would
yes,
maybe point her in the right direction. Okay, yeah, be
yeah.
on the lookout for that,
And
Gloria.
I can also give out my email address if you want to email me, and then I can respond that way and look into it for her. It's my first name, Acrystal, at californiasibs.org. So if she wants to reach out to me
Okay,
that
we'll
way, you
share
can.
that. Yeah, we'll
Okay.
share that. That's great. And then as far as suggestions for what to do if you're worried, Gloria, I would suggest taking our Future is Now class. There's a lot of support in there, and that'll also help you with organizing your thoughts around what you need to take care of should something happen to one of you.
Agree. I agree.
Okay, and then we have, let's see, did the sibling support groups discuss when caring for their sibling is difficult to severe behaviors? And uh, is that something that's covered in those groups? Do you know?
Yes, we talk about everything. So
Okay,
yes,
great. Good,
absolutely.
good to know. And then our last question, and then we're going to wrap up. My son is 20. He is severely autistic. My daughter is 6 years old. I feel bad that I have already started preparing her for when I can no longer care for him. I do not expect her to become his caregiver, but I have let her know to always make sure her brother is okay. Do you think it's too soon to start preparing her? Anybody?
I
I can
don't.
answer to that,
Honestly, I
or I
don't.
can jump in. I don't think it's too early, or too late. I honestly feel like the more that we communicate with our kids, who eventually might be the main caregivers, I think it's best.
Yeah,
I think
start connecting.
also,
Yeah.
I think exploring the options and maybe talking about what those options look like, because I know my mom has also presented, there's homes, there might be someone who can come to you. You might want to take, and again, every situation's different, but I think talking about the options and knowing what those options even are in your area, in your situation, I think, allows even for like long term to be thinking of what ends up being most appropriate. And that's an easy conversation. That's not, here you go, you're going to have to take care of your sibling.
Yeah, and I think just getting back to like what a Crystal you said at the beginning, like with how how to massage Shawnee's legs because that's something you watched your mother do, like just allowing them to see you in your space as a parent and what that looks like, and then not putting the pressure on them to take over the role at some point, but just allowing them to see the beauty of it, and seeing the connection that's there between you. And again, thank you all for joining us today, and we hope to see you next time. Have a great day.